Hey everyone, Cooper here, host of the fine podcast you're listening to. I just want to let you know that the episode you clicked on has a format that is very heavily inspired by a podcast called The Bookening. To be clear, our thoughts and opinions in this episode are our own, but the format is very similar to this podcast. I just wanted to give you a heads up and give credit where it is due. With that out of the way, enjoy the show. Coming up next, Booking It discusses The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Hey everyone, welcome back to Booking It. I'm of course your humble and eloquent host, Mr. Cooper Cobbs, and joining me today, my very good friend, Mr. Tanner Lewis. Welcome to the podcast, Tanner. Good to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I acted like you were a guest, but like you're regularly on the podcast, if that's unclear. And we're here. We're talking about Huckleberry Finn. How's life going, Tanner? How's it going?
It's going well. Just cranking out school, work.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Making the big bucks. I still have $1,600 sitting in my garage that I need to get rid of and sell. Not get rid of, but sell. So yeah, me and Tanner, we worked on them together. We have a project. We made some Adirondack chairs out of former whiskey barrels, and that's been a lot of fun. And it will be a lot of money as soon as we can sell them. But they're pretty fun.
Eventually, there will be a lot of money.
And I mean, they're good. Like they're good chairs too. So
if you're interested,
if you're interested, you live nearby us, let us know, and we can hook you up with some pretty cool chairs that we've made. And trust me, we've sat in them. They're good to sit in. Okay, so like they're secure. They're what's the word I'm looking for?
Reliable.
Why can I not think of it? Well, yes,
sturdy.
Reliable, sturdy. That's what it was looking for. Yes. They will stand the test of time. Anyway, you know, stood the test of time, Tanner. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Great book. Let's talk about it. Let's give us your baggage, Tanner.
My baggage. Mark Twain. I've read a lot of two of his books. I read, as y'all all know, I read Tom Sawyer, and we will not go into the horrific details of what happened there. And then
it's not horrific. All you did was you read the kids' version. You thought you read the real version.
Exactly,
okay,
that's
we've
horrific.
All done that before. I did it with A Tale of Two Cities for a little bit.
That's true, but A Tale of Two Cities is like.
And let me tell you, the kids' version was like way more hard to follow than the real version. It was so weird.
That doesn't explain anything.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyways, I read Tom Sawyer, and I read the children's version first, and then I read the actual version. I figured out that I had read the original for Tom Sawyer actually on my Kindle, but I only had the abridged version for the kids. And then same goes for Huck Finn. I've read the actual version on my Kindle, but we only have the abridged in my house. So.
Mm-hmm. Is the abridged version cut out all the N-words and stuff like that?
Yeah, it cuts out a few of the really fun scenes too, though, sadly.
Oh yeah? What does it cut out?
Some of the scenes were him with Huck Finn walking into some towns and like figuring out that he's a boy and stuff like that.
Oh, the scene like where he's dressed up as a lady.
Yeah, where he's dressed up as a girl.
He's talking to the lady, yeah.
Oh, that was such a great scene.
That's fun.
You got it with your knees.
Yeah. And I knew as soon as he chucked the lead and it almost hit the rat, I was like, dude, come on. Anyway, anything else to say about your baggage? You like Mark Twain, like his books?
Yeah, I enjoy Mark Twain. I think that his writing is exceptional, and that he's just... If America had a good author, it would be him.
Yeah, I mean, people like to make the argument that Huckleberry Finn is the great American novel. And Mark, I mean, it's definitely, it's In terms of the way it shaped literary culture, in terms of the actual quality of the book itself, the time in which it was written and stuff, and like capturing the American experience, it definitely has a good argument for being up there for sure. For sure.
And then there's me, who's
I don't know,
just
though.
sad that I wasn't born in the UK or Britain, because all of the good
That's where all the
writers were
fantasy
there.
novels happen. No, well, I mean, honestly, I'm not sad that I was born in Russia. I'm not sad that I wasn't born in Russia necessarily. And all the good writers come from there. So hey,
I don't know, man.
yeah. Well, hey, listen, America is still the land of the free and the home of the brave. We got some pretty darn good books and stuff like that. So at least we can claim most of Hollywood. So I guess that's there. You got Spielberg and stuff like that.
Fine, we claim the modern realm.
Well, I mean, J.K. Rowling, I mean, I don't know. We do have Stephen King, though, I guess. Woohoo, yeah, Stephen King.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about, I gotta get my back at Huck Finn. I read, Mark Twain and Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn have always just kind of been things that I've grown up with. I mean, I've always known who Mark Twain is. I think my mom, when I was like 5 or 6, she has this book. It's like a collection of American stories, and one of those stories was just the chapter from Tom Sawyer where he tricks everybody into whitewashing the fence for him, right? Which is one of the best scenes in American literature. It's just so fun. And so I remember listening to my mom read that out loud. Then I probably read, or at least started to read, a junior version of Tom Sawyer. I eventually did read the real version of Tom Sawyer, and then I read it again for the podcast about 2 years ago now. One of our, I think it was episode like 16 to 17 or something like that.
Something
or
like
17,
that.
18. Anyway, and I like Tom Sawyer a lot. It's a really fun book. Mark Twain is a superb writer, superb storyteller. I never read Huckleberry Finn, and that was really a book that I kind of felt ashamed at having not read. Like, it's one thing to have not read all of Jane Austen or not read any Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, but to have not read Huckleberry Finn, like one of the crucial American novels that everybody reads, I felt kind of ashamed about that. So this copy that I have, Huckleberry Finn, has been sitting on my nightstand in the position I place books I hope to read. Like, this is really for my conscience and conviction, but like, so I really wanted to get around to reading it, and it took me forever. Whenever I would do like Two Truths and a Lie, I would always do 2 books that I had read that people didn't normally read, and then I would have Huckleberry Finn on there of like, oh, surely he's read that, and they would always guess that, and that'd always be the lie because I hadn't read it. But then I decided to give myself some actual motivation to read it, and we decided to do it for the podcast. And I'm very excited to have read it. I haven't finished it yet, but I'm most of the way through, and I'm really loving it so far. It's great. Another note. How do you feel about like Mark Twain in terms of like his atheism and really hating Christianity and all that kind of stuff? Do you have anything to say about that, or how does it affect the way you read his books or anything?
Not really, not any more than I would read another atheist book series or trail of books. I mean, there's a lot of books that I read that aren't explicitly by Christian or spiritual.
All right.
Moral people that morally line up with me. How about that?
Yeah. But at the same time, like, there's a lot of stuff about Huck being confused about Christian. Huck is honestly Mark Twain's voice in terms of railing against Christianity, and it's used quite a bit.
Yeah. How about this? I choose to ignore it. I don't want to ruin my experience with the book, and so I choose to ignore it, even though I do know it's there.
It's like these dumb lines that I'll just throw in, and they're not really necessary, but it's just Mark Twain getting jabs in. And I get Mark Twain jabs everybody, but whatever. And so you're right, I mean, I haven't finished it, but I've heard at the end, there's a bunch of stuff about Huck deciding he's gonna, like, go to hell or something like that. So, I don't know. Maybe my opinion will change after I finish the novel, but so far let's just chew and spit out these couple lines that he throws in. I am assuming
Yeah.
you can name a Mark Twain's actual name, right, Tanner?
George Clemens?
Close.
What was it?
Samuel Clemens.
Samuel Clemens.
Good old Sam Clemens. Yep. But Mark Twain is just a great... You can hear the country in the name. You can also hear the wit. Just when you say Twain, like, yeah, it's a guy who's got some wit in him. And he's a fun guy. Okay, before we get into talking about it, I want to say two of my favorite Mark Twain aphorism quote thingamajigs. The first one is obviously, people call a classic book a book that you want to have read. Just something you can say that I've read that, but you don't actually want to read it itself, if that makes sense. That's a good quote that I love. And then he says, to aspiring authors, your work is both good and original, except that the part that is good is not your own, and the part that is original is not good. So I think that's hilarious. But
yeah.
Anyway, it's like, Mark Twain's like encouraging young writers. It's like, but actually, no.
He's just
So
roasting them.
Mark Twain. Yep. All right, let's talk about Huckleberry Finn. What do you think about Huckleberry Finn, Tanner?
I enjoy it. I think it's one of the classic American novels. I really enjoy the country overtones that it has. It just screams American pioneer just through and through. The Mississippi River, the floating down the raft, just everything about it screams American realism, and I appreciate it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think that one of the main arguments for Huckleberry Finn being one of the great American novels is, as Tanner identified, it captures really the spirit of America, the time at which it was written, post-Civil War, westward expansions going on, and I've always been fascinated by when people say, really, the Western genre is a purely American genre, because, well, America is basically the West, and it's like the last West in a sense, but also because there's something in us Americans' blood that is just meant to explore and go west, if that makes sense. There's just something in the American spirit and blood that wants to make us go and pioneer, and even if we don't actually want to, like for me, I have honestly little desire to move out to the country and start pioneering in a sense, but whenever I read about it and hear other places, it really captures the great feeling that I can relate to as an American, of it being in my blood, and it being in my history, and it being in the great country that I live in. It's history to have moved west. Huckleberry Finn really captures that. Not only is Huck Finn a great avatar for just any young boy that you can instantly relate to, he's not only a fun narrator and funny, but he's the perfect person to, I guess, tell a story and go along with us. So
yeah, when you're talking about that westward expansion, I just feel like it's kind of ironic how we read all of these Eastern European and Russian literature, all of this literature that's coming from the East, and how all of those are about finding your place and just kind of settling down and placing roots somewhere. I mean, not entirely, but to a fault. That seems what all of that classic literature, that's all what it deals with. It deals with setting roots, and then America's the I don't know, kind of like the strawberry of the berry patch. We just want to set shoots down and just keep going and going and going. We want to set a root here, and then we want to move on. So I feel like that. I mean, we're recording this the day that the Apple event is going on, and I don't know. I'm just kind of feeling. I think it's ironic how they're set all the way in California, the west of the West. Once you leave California, you've hit the East again, and just how even there, the irony of us continuing to move forward in the West, and how we've kind of hit our max on what we can do in the, not necessarily the natural, but of the physical,
finding more land that hasn't already
yeah,
been
the
occupied.
land. Like now we're into the era of technology and globalization, and how we can't push geographically. There's not much else we can do. Well, within the confines of the globe, I mean, we've
there
kind
are
of.
still massive areas of land that haven't been civilized, but either
I
they're
agree,
A, uninhabited, B, protected by governments, or C, too dangerous to live in. So
I know.
like most of the stuff isn't there.
Yeah, so we've kind of, it just feels like we've kind of hit that, hit the end of what we can civilize on Earth to some extent. And so I'm just hit by the irony that the place where most of the new technological and global advances are being made in California, not all great, I will say, but still where all the decisions are being made, it's all the way at the farthest west that you can go.
Silicon Valley controls technology, but then also think about New York City, the other big spot. It's where he first came, basically. The East and West. So yeah, it's fascinating. And reading Huck Finn after having read Moby Dick over the summer was also really interesting as well. This Moby Dick is another one of the books that people put up there as the great American novel. And both of them capture something about the American spirit. Like the first chapter of Moby Dick really drew me in, and I was with it basically all the way. It's just all about Ishmael, the narrator, saying every time I get like a little uneasy on the land, I have to go to the sea, and it's just describing like a metaphor after metaphor, scene after scene of why a man needs the water, and it really taps into something American as well, of like getting on a boat and sailing out and exploring. And really, that's the American spirit, is exploring. And so Huck Finn does this as well by tapping into every little boy's dream of running away, living on a raft in a river, and having just fun adventures, and moving west, expansion, adventure, things like that. Yeah, I really think that's what's made this book so great and so long-lived. Is not only is it excellent in literary form, but it's also captured the American spirit and tapped into what boys really want. So,
I'm also hit by the what you just said about like it being every little boy's dream, just like going and running away. I think it's actually like there's so many times, at least I can say, where I like think about running away. Not really, but like, you know how it's just that thing in the back of your mind. Everybody knows. Yeah. Like it's not like, oh, this is such a terrible thing.
It's not something you would ever act upon.
It's not anything you'd ever act upon, but it's still something that's in the back of your mind for a significant amount of time, at least until you're on your, well, you begin to gain independence, honestly.
Have more freedom, yeah.
Yeah. And so I just think it's ironic.
Tanner wouldn't know what that's like, though, because he didn't have his driver's license yet. No, I'm kidding. It's a joke. Keep going.
Ouch. That just stabbed me directly in the heart, specifically because I can't go to work today because I don't have a ride. But just how Huck Finn runs away, and because he's tired of this civilized life, I guess, as he would call it.
And also, like, let's be honest, his dad's not great.
Oh, no. I'm not really talking about his dad. I'm talking about running away from Aunt Sally and... Wait, not Aunt...
Oh, yeah.
What's the other... What's
the widow, yeah.
The widow, yeah. And so just how he detests this sort of civilized life and how he wants to go and run away and be a part of nature. I think that that's a desire that everybody has. I mean, this is 21st century America, and we spend a ton of time sitting on our couch saying that we're doing a lot of stuff and we're not really getting out and doing a whole lot. And so I just think that
why all the jokes that have American as the butts are all about America getting fat and lazy and not doing anything, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Europeans spend so much more time outside than Americans do, and Americans were the one that came and took over, like, the entirety of the American continent, right? And so it's
Yeah.
just ironic how you we've gotten to this point where all of these little kids still have a very strong innate desire to be outside and to do something. And
Yeah.
we're kind of just casting that aside now. And people are looking for more desk jobs than they're looking to be a mechanic, than people who are looking to be a
Yeah.
mechanic or go and be managing lawns. Like, I know friends who are managing lawns that are making more than people that are at a desk job right now.
Yeah,
And they're
I
like
know.
in their mid-30s. It's insanity. Just
But
because
what's
people don't want to
fascinating,
actually get out and do work, but yet we still have this desire to go and be out. And I think that we've
yeah,
just
and
been
that's
killing that desire. Go ahead.
that's fascinating though that even despite like what you've been saying of America becoming more complacent or whatever, that these stories have still even today done so well of I don't want to stay home and do this. I want to go out on an adventure. Whether it's The Hobbit, The Greatest Showman, for whatever reason popped into my mind, just things like that. Of George or It's a Wonderful Life is a perfect example of this. George Bailey, and obviously that's kind of a counterintuitive example, but because it's the perfect mixture of the American and European, like you were talking about. Of George Bailey wants to go out and go see the world, but then he can't. Has to learn to be content with where he is, and it's a beautiful story. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it captures just we feel bad for this guy because he wants to go out and see the world, like we all secretly long to do, and he can't do that. So yeah, it's fascinating that these stories have stood for so long. Another reason that I really love Huck Finn is the voice. Wait, so correct me if I'm wrong. Tom Sawyer is written in third person, right?
Correct.
Right, and then Huck Finn's first person. Can you imagine this book if it was third person?
Oh my gosh.
Like you need Huck Finn narrating this. This is the Adventures of Huckleberry Finn because it's written in a really cool style of he's actively telling you the story in first person, and it's brilliant. I cannot imagine this book without Huck's voice whatsoever.
Honestly, it's kind of like the Hunger Games. Like that, whenever I compare something to first person, it just has to go back to the Hunger Games. It's so. But like
The
the
difference is
Hunger
Huck
Games,
Finn's way more fun than Katniss.
I agree. I just think it has to go back to it's all about the thoughts in the person's head when you're going into first person because you're seeing everything objectively from that point instead of subjectively.
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer being told what these people are thinking. You're being shown what Huck is seeing and then being given his thoughts on what they're thinking. So
Mm-hmm.
everything is through kind of a filter.
Yeah, and that's what gives a book a lot of the humor is Huck Finn
yes.
through his mind making observations that are just hilarious.
Yeah. Because, I mean, let's be honest. If this book was through, I don't know, either, the king or the duke's point of view, it would just be like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if
Yeah.
we were doing it in third person, it's kind of this selectiveness of the filter that you put on.
We'll be honest, like reading like in third person, this book would still be fun because Mark Twain is still fun. You'd still get the same jokes likely, but it's so much better coming from Huck and having Huck say them than it is having the narrator say it to you. So much better.
Yeah, because it's kind of like
what's
you
funny
made
is,
the joke instead of getting told the joke.
yeah, it's a good point. Like I don't know, this scene is coming to mind at the very beginning where he spills some salt on the table, and then the widow. He tries to like pick some up and throw it over his shoulder so as to not get cursed or whatever. And
Huh.
the widow stops him, and he's like, you get inside his mind right there, and he's like really scared or whatever. It's hilarious. And that's a good moment of that would not have been as funny in third person as it is in first person. But what's interesting is I'm listening to it, which I think is really a great way to do it. Huckleberry Finn is one of the books to be read out loud, I think, especially when it comes to understanding the dialect and things like that. But Elijah Wood of the Lord of the Rings fame is reading it out loud.
Ooh.
So he actually played Huck Finn as one of his first roles, way back in the 90s, apparently. I haven't seen the movie. But so he's reading it, and he's doing good accents, good dialect. I think that Huck Finn's not as bad as Tom Sawyer in terms of this, but the dialect is just so hard to understand and read sometimes, especially in Twain.
Yeah, like, that's why I like Audible, and that's why I like having the Bible read to me sometimes, just because, like, sometimes when I'm reading genealogies in the Bible, I'm just like,
Right.
I really want to read this, but I cannot read this out loud. I just need to have somebody else read it to me out loud. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here and die from trying to pronounce this phonetically.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna make it. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of why I enjoy Audible and having people read stuff to me. And that's just in general. Like, it's something about having it read to you and then you reading it as well while it's being read to you. Because then you're hearing it, you're seeing it, and then you're processing it. And so
Right.
it allows you to be able to get so much more done. And I mean, even if you're listening to it, it's more like somebody's telling you a story than you figuring out the story on your own. And so I just think it's
of The Hobbit and things like that.
Yes. Just how it really affects your brain and how you process things when it's being told to you and when you're figuring out for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, some books are just meant to be read out loud, and those books should be read out loud. Like Huck Finn, like The Hobbit, like things like that. I would say, though, that Mark Twain is probably the best example of good dialectic dialogue, as opposed to Stephen Crane of The Red Badge of Courage or something like that. And I remember reading, I don't know why I was reading this, but like 2 years ago I read the Maze Runner trilogy. Have you read that, Tanner?
Oh, yes, I have. One of...
Yeah.
Oh. They're coming out with another one. Have you seen that?
Oh, really? Oh.
Yes, it looks even worse than the first.
Well, it's got really bad dialogue as well, because sometimes a character will say, and it'll be like Y-A, no. And nobody really wants that. Nobody wants that. Either you're going to go all out and you're going to do Mark Twain style dialogue, or you're just going to say, like Y-O-U, because it's really disturbing for me as a reader just to see that and to see I've heard this said before, nobody wants realistic dialogue, they want believable dialogue. And it's just not believable to have it like that, in my opinion. But having it in Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer, or the short story that we read a couple years ago for school, The Jumping Frog of Cavaliers County, has really good dialectic dialogue if you're willing to slog through trying to understand it. Like, he goes all out and does well with it, I think.
Yeah, dialogue can make or break these kind of, as we've been talking about, these like audible stories, just because it affects so much of what we're talking about and how we perceive the story. Because if I was going to be reading this story versus reading it out loud, I'm going to want those inflections when I'm reading it out loud. That's why The Hobbit is so good at its dialogue whenever we have it. It just gives so much, it gives good inflection, and you're able to recreate the tone well because of how well he describes it. Now, Twain, on the other hand, he kind of lends it more towards the figure out how to pronounce it. And so it's a little bit more, I think you described it as sluggish, just like slogging through it. But I think that once you've figured it out and once you can like read it and pronounce it, it makes the story so much more enjoyable than
more fun
versus trying to read the Maze Runner series. Oh my gosh, I hate that series so much. I read it for 3 nights straight, and then I finished it, and I laid in my bed and I cried because I had wasted 3 nights reading that story.
Yeah.
I hated it so much.
What have we learned, children? Don't read Maze Runner. All right, well, I guess that pretty much sums it up. We have a lot of stuff to talk about next time. Hopefully Isaiah will be on to do it with us. But solid foundation here. We like Huck Finn. Thumbs up. You should read it. All right, let's do some donor shoutouts. Tanner, where would someone go if they wanted a donor shoutout?
They would go to patreon.com/bookinit and would subscribe to any of our $5 and up tiers.
That's correct. If it's $5 or more a month, we'll shout you out on the show. All right, I'm going to say the patron. You say whether they would be better living on the West Coast or East Coast, okay?
Gotcha.
All right, Nana.
East.
Van Papi and Wayla.
West.
Mike and Sylvia.
West.
Mr. Mike and Miss Laura.
West.
Nan Jenny and Uncle Sam.
West.
Moses.
East.
Zara.
West.
Anna.
East.
Emily.
East.
Becky.
West.
Lizzie.
East.
And Keenan.
East as well.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to that. We really appreciate that. Make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review down below if you haven't already. If you are able to, support us. The link that Tanner mentions in the description helps us out a lot. Helps us keep producing content for you guys. We'll be back next time with Huck Finn Part 2. But until then,
keep on booking it.